Well, and so here again, you're from the local constitutional coop out here in California, and I'm doing a special video, something I don't usually do, but this one, it's to solicit some serious investment capital and/or a collateralized loan. And this one is tailor made for advocates of civil rights. 42 USC 1983. If you haven't figured it out by now, it doesn't work. I got two words for it: Jalen Walker. Got shot 48 times in the back by 8 law enforcement thugs, none of whom even got indicted for involuntary manslaughter for what we all know is first degree murder. Working together with me with some capital to work with and meeting up with new people that have more backing, we can change things, but it ain't going to be done in civil rights. What you have to understand about that is it all comes from the non existent 14th War Amendment, what I call NEFWA. Not only it doesn't exist, it never did. The Supreme Court contemporaneously ruled it unconstitutional, ex parte Legato, and the ratification process with the capital RAT involved violations of rights secured by all 6 articles of the Constitution. The good news these days is that the current justices of the U.S. Supreme Court know a lot of what I just got finished saying, and they're going to be ready to act on it. They have to a degree, by the way, with the case called Axon. You'll learn more about that later. And we're awaiting their decision now in a case called SEC versus Droxy out of the Fifth Circuit in Texas. And the Texas Court of Appeals there threw the SEC out on the street. And that's what the U.S. Supreme Court is going to do too with all its administrative state bullshit. Nothing even close to judicial process. And that's a big deal here because we're all, uh, we have human beings and we have creator endowed inalienable rights across the board. Black, white, Asian, you name it. But in their system, they think we're all just solely foreign state subordinate corporate dead entities. No rights, no nothing that the de facto national socialist government is bound to respect. And with that thought process, and this is what they do behind the scenes at the highest level, and they go back to Akron, Ohio, and Jalen Walker, what's the problem? He was dead anyway. Ain't. That's what they think. You don't have any rights. And that's what we have to change for the benefit of all of us. And even if it involves some quote unquote white supremacist arguments, and it sure as hell does, I admit to that. And I'm forced to admit to it because on my mom's side of the family, um, I can prove, and I'd love to have that family Bible. It disappeared, I think, before I was even around, but she told me, and I have no reason to doubt it, I'm related to Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson. Also to Light Horse Harry Lee. You might not know who he is, but you know his son, Robert E. Lee. And that's the gene pool I have. I couldn't have turned out any differently if I had wanted to. But that's the winning argument because the sovereign body politic of the nation and republic was uh, amended out of existence by the ratification, quote unquote, of the 14th Amendment. So all they see now are corporate, subordinate, dead entities, and that's what they think you are too. But this is the way we get around it, because once we get back to square one on our federated republican form of government of defined and limited powers, now everybody has rights, even inhabitants of territories have the right to common law trial by jury, habeas corpus, and other rights, not government granted privileges. And we got that government back, the best one ever invented. And no, it wasn't perfect, but the best one. We want it back. We can go from there, make changes, and do it right this time. That's the salvation, for you, your family, your posterity. Exactly what those racist framers, quote unquote, tried to do by ordaining this Constitution to ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Now, a big hint here about how good this is. It's almost impossible for me to have gotten in jail here in California, and I've been here 42 years. Uh, but I did get into jail in Columbia, South Carolina, where I had never been before. You figure that one out. How you can commit a crime in a place you ain't never been? Ain't. But it happened. I got arrested out here in the library for crying out loud by 4 law enforcement thugs. And I was there because I didn't have internet at home like I do now. And was taken to the police station, and I found out they had an arrest warrant out for me from South Carolina. And I said, wait a minute, I've never been there. Didn't matter. So it takes a while for me to get through the process here. And I get to South Carolina courtesy of 4 different federal unmarked military aircraft. I was able to get on those, by the way, without any slave ID, so that wasn't a problem. But it took 2 months to get from A to B, and I finally get there, and we have the arraignment, quote unquote. And the judge reads the charge. And by the way, they hauled me in there. I'm in a red jail suit, manacled hands and foot, which I found out later the red suits were murderers and crazy people, which is what they thought I was. And the judge read the charge, practicing law without a license. I laughed. And I said the problem with that is I don't practice it, get it right the first time. And the judge went on and said, well, we got to check you out and be sure you're competent to represent yourself. I could have thrown up my hands. Oh, bark at a judge. Loretta v. California, 422 U.S. 806. Problem with that is the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Barron v. Baltimore, 7 Peters, 243, 1828. The Bill of Rights doesn't apply to the states. Shut the fucking courtroom up in 90 seconds. They did not know what to do with me. I didn't hear 2 more words from the prosecutor or anybody else, and I was there for another 4+ months because the real deal was they were investigating me behind the scenes as a domestic terrorist, which explains those federal military aircraft now, doesn't it? So I think I should have been home the first week of April. It took the first week of August before I did that. And even then, by the way, it was a really sad scenario. But at that last hearing, by the way, this judge showed up, one of the good ones, and she came in, had a heavy head dressing on. She just had very serious treatment for brain cancer, was dead 4 months later, which I didn't know at the time. And now I can't get anybody because the only other people that might have known about the federal detention were the then Chief Justice Gene Hofer told the South Carolina Supreme Court, and then Governor Nikki. Probably won't be able to successfully subpoena that, but I know damn well what happened. So I was there 5 months in a detention facility. It wasn't like San Quentin or anything. But when I first showed up there after I got back from the hearing, everybody in that facility working in official capacities hated my guts. Oh, here's one of those, southern white racist types, Ku Klux Klan and all that. And the reason for that was because I put a 150-page writ into the South Carolina Supreme Court in the Dylan Roof case. A lot of you may know who he is. He's a stupid white kid that went into a church in Charleston, shot the place up, and killed 8 or 9 people. And I sent the South Carolina Supreme Court a 50-page writ of habeas corpus plus another 30 or 40 pages of exhibits. And I said, guess what? You don't have jurisdiction. And I have very good sources for that. And by the way, one of the keys to what I do, I have a order from a trial judge back in the day in about 1910 case. I'll get the case for in a sec, but it said it's unfortunate that a murderer should go unwhipped of justice, but more unfortunate that a court without jurisdiction should exercise it. And that's exactly what they were doing there. And yes, that was a white shooter in a black church. I would have done the same thing with a black shooter in a white church. That part didn't particularly matter. And with all the time I spent there, I had a couple of guards that really hated my guts. One black woman in particular wanted nothing to do with me. But over the course of time, she saw me when we were out in common areas, which didn't happen every day, helping out a lot of people that were there, most of them black, most of them charged with domestic violence at home. And I ended up, I think, getting charged with dropped in one case and lowered in other cases because they charge you with first degree, whether it's no matter what it is, and they plea bargain it down to third degree or whatever to keep you in jail. So this woman saw me do that over the course of that time, and they were mostly black victims. And she had to say to herself, what the hell kind of a white supremacist is this? Well, this is one that wants to help people across the board because I know we have to all work together and pull hard. And that's what all this nonsense is. Everybody getting killed, all these black victims that you see with white law enforcement thugs, whether it's Jalen Walker, whether it's Takia Young, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, you name it. That's what they're trying to do is separate us black and white to keep us from working together. And that's what we need to do most importantly. We have the same agenda here. So it's great news for all of us. And at the end of the time, by the way, when I walked out of there the last day, she was the one that walked me out. And I looked at her and I said, well, Miss Richardson, haven't we come a long way? She laughed. She knew exactly what I was saying because what she saw there, you couldn't possibly justify, with an old style, a white supremacist, the Ku Klux Klan and all that. That's not what I was. I do use those issues because they're the winners. That's what gets us all out to safety and allows us to have our own lives and our creator endowed inalienable rights, not civil rights. 14th Amendment, by the way, doesn't exist. It never did. You'll learn that. And even so, the main agenda of the New York bankers, they couldn't give them a rat's ass about the freedmen in the South. All they wanted to do was get these ignorant blacks to vote so they could take over Congress in both houses, which they did, and bring on this elected despotism we've now had for 160 years. And the quickie before I go, we haven't had any elections, and I can prove this a cappella too, since November the 5th, 1860. We haven't had a president lawfully in office since Andrew Johnson, March 4th, 1869, who, wouldn't you know, happens to be our greatest president. And you'll learn all about why that is, too, because he got misconstrued as being a racist, but that's not what he was doing either. So you learn the truth here. And I have a lot of that to share. It's what I was put on this good earth to do by the God above to do it. And I have the good health at the age of 75, but my wife is still ahead of me. It's going to be exciting to work together, get to the real truth for once, and quit all this BS civil rights crap. Wasn't designed to work, never has. You get a rare occasion like that, where they have to make it look good. But even in George Floyd case, that was supposed to be murder, and that bastard cop probably should have been on death row by now, for what he did there. But it just simply isn't how it works today. But we can fix it and go a long way and make everybody happy to the maximum extent possible. Get back that original government, go from there and make changes and do it right this time. That's what's exciting. So, geez, send me an email, gmail.com. I keep forgetting with this type of video to say that, but that's very important. It'll be posted on the front of the video too, but gmail.com, and we can introduce ourselves to each other and figure out if there's a way to meet, how to do that, and so forth. Could possibly do Zoom appearances or what have you. But I've got gifts here. Well, another thing, in closing, what I'm going to say, you want to watch a movie called A Beautiful Mind about John Nash, a mathematician in the 1950s. It's a Ron Howard movie, Opie on the Andy Griffith show. And that's what I have. I have that kind of gift. And back in the 50s, he did things that changed the whole scope of the field of mathematics he was in. That's what I can do here with the Constitution, laws, and history of the United States. So send me an email, uwinningcourt@gmail.com. We're going to have a lot more to talk about than you can possibly imagine. And if we work together, we make it better for all of us. That's the bottom line here. Thank you.